Making connections over 200 episodes won't be easy. Join me on this journey of conversation where I connect with those people that have gotten me this far so I can go even farther. This is the Dependent Independent Podcast. Hey everyone, thank you for downloading and listening to episode 68 of the Dependent Independent Podcast. I'm your host, Nick G, and this is a podcast about making connections, looking back while moving forward. In this podcast, I am joined by a friend, and we share experiences and stories that hopefully you can learn from as much as we do, anything and everything to help you move forward. Standing right next to me, and we're recording this on YouTube as well, and we'll talk about how you can find the show, is my friend Dave Steele. Dave Steele is a podcaster and a family man, and I've known Dave for quite some time. When did we first meet? Oh no, that was a year ago.
2 years ago. Well, was it a year?
No, it was a year ago.
It was at the
So I
MapCon.
go to, and I've talked about him before. My friend Dewey. His real name is Duarte, and I think it's just me and his mother-in-law. I think that calls him Dewey. By the way,
Right,
yeah.
You mentioned that in the show.
Yeah, he waited about, I think, 10 years into our relationship to tell me that I'm the only one who does that because I think I introduced himself. And one of your co-hosts, Alicia, was at his studio, handed me a business card for a podcast. And when I mentioned I had a show, handed it to me. And then I had that in my pocket. And then when we went to MapCon, the Mid-Atlantic Podcast Conference in 2016, you showed up.
I handed you a card.
No, dude. No, I think it was your shirt. No, or someone said
I think I went to hand you a card.
And it was the same one?
And then you went, wait, I have one of these.
Because your daughter, Mara, was there. And then one thing, I just realized how small a world we live in the podcasting world. And then as we started talking, I started listening to your show. My son enjoyed your show. He hosts a podcast called The Quest for Magic and Steele. It's a Dungeons and Dragons podcast. We've talked about it on the show. I think your show made the Are You Listening? I Think You Should segment before. Mm-hmm. And then I had the ability or the opportunity to be on your show, where I went to your house, sat with your kids, and we were in your basement recording this cool show, and it was a long show. You know what? I listened to it, but I think I fast-forwarded to the piece. But I don't listen. I don't listen to my shows anyway. I got to do all the shows that I've guested on. I got to put them somewhere.
Oh yeah,
because I probably have up to 9 or 10 shows.
And there's a lot of good stuff on there too. I thought about that too. Yeah.
And they're all different. All the shows that I've been on, there's been professional podcasts, there's been personal podcasts, your podcast, creative podcasts. Yeah. That I have to probably get somewhere, maybe
at least post them on a website.
Put them on a website.
Sure.
So, what I wanted to talk, we've been talking for a little while. What I wanted to talk about on this episode 68 is we talk about, and I don't think I may have attacked this topic before, creativity. I think we talked about a while back with our friend Katie, who does this stop motion.
Amazing.
Her or you know what, Elizabeth Sweetley. We talked either one, and we have a back catalog too. Make sure if this is the first time you're listening to this show, go ahead and subscribe in your iTunes app or whatever podcast app you're listening to. We have links on the show notes. You can check that out too, because this is a 200 episode podcast, so you can go all the way back to episode 1 when I pretty much had no idea what I was doing, and we weren't in the studio, and I wasn't hanging out with people like Dave. So we talked about creativity, but in the past week, I've done something that I never thought I would actually do. Is I produced a podcast for my wife. My wife, when I started this podcast, I think she kind of looked at it as this hobby, right? It was something I was doing with a good friend of mine, my friend Dewey, and we would go to a studio, and about every other week, I think the schedule was we would do it every other week because it was tough to find between his schedule and my schedule. Never thought, by the way, in a million years, I'd have other people on the show. So it was just something to do. And then when I kind of made it over that 7-episode hump, they say, like, it's podcasts really, rarely make it over 7 episodes.
Yeah. Was he in every one of your beginning shows?
Yeah, the first and second. Then I did the third one on my own because it wasn't around. Right. But I did that from my house. I enjoyed that one. So at the time, my wife felt that this was more of I think she looked at it as a hobby. I've always been I graduated with an art degree, so being creative is something I've always done. I know it's not the career path I took, but it allowed me to have several outlets throughout my life. I think when I was a kid, I used to draw. I was surfing at the time, so all my friends wanted to own a surf shop at one time. So I had it was called Head High Surfing, really cool logo, dude, where a guy, it was like a triangle where a guy was underwater. Like the surfer was underwater and the leash attached to his was stretched out above the water, and there was a board up in the air. That was, oh man, I'd love to recreate that in Photoshop. But we were always using something to mean something else. Everything we were creating had a bigger purpose.
Yeah.
So at the time, my wife looked at me, and I don't think she looked at and realized, neither did I, how big this could actually be. And as we started doing it, my wife joined me on the show. Our first show was a Valentine's Day episode. I think that was episode 3. You should go listen to that. It's a really good one where she spent our first Valentine's Day, which is 20 years ago, this November. She was in the ER. She had some crazy allergic reaction to Chinese food at a house she was babysitting for, and we spent our thing. It's good. It's a good show, man. So I never thought in a million years my wife would want to have her own show, but after doing episode 66 with our friend Liv, what's up?
I'm looking up number 3.
Oh, look up number 3. I don't know if that's going to make the recorder buzz. You think? Oh, right. Do it later. So I don't know. I don't have headphones on. So if you heard a buzz there, it's because my buddy Dave pulled his phone out. But I'm sorry, man. That's what I did.
Nah,
that's what we're going to talk about too.
Good.
Taking all this shit too damn seriously.
Keep rolling.
Seriously. So, my wife now, after doing episode 66, had a night out, a mom's night out with her friend Liv, and they decided that they wanted to do a show on their own. And I spent the last week not only working out of town, but also producing a podcast that wasn't my own. And it was.
And what's it called?
It's called UBU Podcast. With Meg and Liv, but we're going to wait till the end. We'll talk all about that.
Too late. You already did.
Well, we'll talk about that on the Are You Listening? I think you should podcast at the end. So what I wanted to talk to you, Dave, about in understanding that, we connected at the podcast conference. We connected through social media. I've been to your home. Now you've been to my home. You are like I did 2 podcasts, but from all the stuff that you're doing between your life and your kids, and why don't you do this? So this podcast you have, I don't know if my audience is into Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sure there's a lot of Gen Xers out there that are, that I think your show is exciting to listen to, but it's also nostalgic because as a kid, that was the time, Dave, when we were like, we were talking in the bumper about Catholicism and Christianity, right? Catholics were really quick to say that it was all about worshiping the devil.
Back in the 80s, it was major.
And this is why that Stranger Things was so cool, because they made it mainstream.
Right.
But tell me how you got, what type of podcast, and how did you bring your kids into the fold?
Okay. It's a long story, but I'll try to shorten that. I found podcasting magically. There was a band I was listening to, Grace Potter and the Nocturnals. If you haven't heard them,
I gotta write down.
Killer band. Okay, kind of rock and roll, new, classic rock type, soulful. Anyway, so I would follow her, and she did an interview, and I found a link on my phone. I have an iPhone. I've had it since they started them. I clicked on this link, and it brought me to a podcast. It opened up this podcast player on my phone. I had no idea it was even there. I saw this podcast. I listened to the show. Great show. They sang live on the show. And then I started looking at this podcast player. I'm thinking, wow, I started looking at all these shows, searching. This is free? This is, and I found, right?
It's content that's free, which is
and
nuts.
I found this, I don't know how it happened with you to finding podcasts.
It was like 2008 I had
I don't remember the year that was, but it was later than that. But I found it, and I was amazed at all this stuff that was free. I started going crazy listening. At the same time, my kids were playing D&D. We always played tabletop games at home.
Was it just D&D? You ever do any other one?
No, we never played D&D. We played, I don't remember the names of them, but crazy cool games, like European-style board games, Settlers of Catan, and a whole bunch of different ones. I can't even think of them. But we didn't play Monopoly, stuff like that. They were kind of lame. They were boring. We wanted different kinds of games that we get active. Apples to Apples. Where we get, Pictionary stuff. We get very involved in it. More fun games, stuff like that. So one day they were playing D&D. Her and her boyfriend and her friend, Chris, they're playing D&D. And I saw them, and I said, I want to play D&D. How come we never played D&D? And I remembered, I went back to the 80s. I'm an 80s kid going up in high school. And I remember hearing about D&D. But, matter of fact, I just met with my friend from high school like 2 days ago. We got together for dinner. Haven't talked to him in years. And he talked about, he heard that I was doing the D&D podcast, and he started laughing. He said, you were like Mr. Cool in high school.
But why would that be? Okay.
I don't know, because I was Mr. Cool. He was the nerds.
What a dick.
They were the nerds, and he played D&D. It was funny. He was laughing at me like, oh, now you're the nerd. Geek. I'm like, yeah, well, whatever. Wow. It's for everybody. He said, you don't know me.
Everybody's got a label.
I have a nerd in me, too, you know. So, anyway, my kids were playing it, and I said, I want to play it. I love doing voices. You know that growing up, I've read their books to them, Harry Potter, and doing all the voices. Even though I sucked at them, just playing around with the voices. So I said, let's play D&D. So we got together, and she said, okay. My daughter said, I'll make a campaign. So we had a few of my kids, and my daughter ran the game. We only did a few episodes. But as time is going, we're doing that. This is fun. I started saying, you know what? I found some podcasts about D&D, and it was a little boring. It's kind of, they weren't doing the voices. I said, we could do a podcast. I have a studio. I started doing voiceover stuff, so I had a mini studio. And I knew about electronics and audio from DJing. So I said, let's make our own little studio. We'll do podcasts. I started reading everything I could find, listening to podcast shows about podcasts. Mm-hmm. And then we had a family meeting. We talked about doing a bunch of different shows. I said, well, okay, I know from listening to these podcast shows, we have to get a domain name because we have to have our own website. We have to get the feed.
So you went all that right away.
I said, we're going to do it. We're going to do it from the get. Mm-hmm. We're not going to get some stupid free thing, put it on SoundCloud and not have control of it or give our stuff to some other company that owns the feed. I learned about all that stuff. So I want to be in control. I'm a control freak. So we had our own website, have our feed, host it, and then we decided to do D&D first. So we picked the names, did the domain names, the Steele, Magic and Steele, Steele Empire.
Is your last name really Steele with an E on the end?
No. So
it's like Prince, dude.
It's actually a family name. No, it's
that's fine. No, I get it.
It's actually my dad's middle name, Steele, and it's my son's middle name. So I made it.
So to those listening, Dave, you would introduce. I mean, it's technically your brand.
Yeah.
In the last E is for entertainment.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I think when the first time I heard it, I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then I just, that's his last name. And I'm glad I could ask you.
No, yeah.
Is it like Schwarzkopf or something?
No. It's Benson, actually.
Okay,
Dave
cool.
Benson.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you want to look me up, Dave Benson. So, no, just Steele.
That's cool.
I started doing audiobooks and voiceover. Mm-hmm. And I needed a website for that. I have Steele VO, So I said, before I did podcasting, I said, well, I need a name. Am I going to be Dave Benson? Narrated by David Benson. Like, Benson. I have nothing wrong with my name, but I thought I need something catchy that people grab. David Steele. And it's my dad's middle name. It's my son's middle name. I love the name. It's E on the end, Steele. It's people's first names. I forget where he was named after. But I said, you know what? I'll be David Steele. That's catchy, iron, and that's it. And it became
badass, man.
Yeah, and it became our show name. I already had the voiceover going. Mm-hmm. Not big. I did a couple little small things, but so we said. My daughter even said, "Well, let's do the Steele Empire." Star Wars. I'm like, all right. So we looked it up, found a domain name, and then Magic and Steele. Steele, like get it? Steele. So it worked out. So that's D&D. That's how we started.
So in what I want to talk about, we talked about upstairs is so. I decide to start a podcast. You do a podcast, and then suddenly it's not good enough, right? No, not good. No, let me take that.
I know,
not
not good enough.
Good enough to the extent that we want more, right?
Yes.
I want to be able to do more. So then, so why do we? What drives us?
It's that creative hunger. Just like you said, you're a creative person, and it's in you.
That I get, but it gets real difficult, right? Because you stop and you look at your life and be like, okay, I'm managing my job, support my family. I'm managing this one creative thing that I never thought I could do, which I've seen. If the setup, we'll put a link to listen to the show, to Dave's show, The Quest for Magic and Steele in the show notes. The production, we have a small studio here, and you thought that this thing,
oh my gosh, this looks huge.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, dude,
power of TV.
This thing's like in a little corner. This is amazing.
So those that have listened to it or watched us on YouTube, you'll see that obviously the camera makes an 8x8 room look pretty freaking big. Mm-hmm. So you do the one show and then you decide to do something bigger. But what keeps us going where you don't? Where's that hunger come from? Because I can't stop. Like now that I have 2 shows under the Independent Productions label, now it's a label, by the way. At first when you create a show and throw it on iTunes, you put like a copyright there, right? And that's what I put there, thinking, all right, it's my show. Now I can actually say I produced 2, and then maybe it's going to be a point where I produce 3.
Oh, yeah.
But then that takes a little bit of sacrifice and time. We talked about creating, when you're using things like Photoshop to create something. Back in the day when I learned Photoshop, it was, Photoshop 2, and then it went all the way up to like Photoshop 15, and then now it's online. Now you have to rent the software, which I have a bootleg copy, by the way. Take that, Adobe. So I get no support, but I have a nice bootleg copy I got from an artist friend of mine. So you learn shortcuts on how to create things because and you could probably agree with this, what's in your head, all you want to do is get it out as fast as possible, and you have to find other ways to do it. So when you do the Dungeons and Dragons thing, but was you doing the audiobooks before you did the audiobooks before that? Yeah.
I did voiceover and audiobooks before I did that. So I had my one man, I think I showed you that with my condenser mic in there, just a little closet.
I've heard a sample. You've sent me a link.
Little closet, and that's where I do my solo stuff. And then the podcast came after that.
Where did you want the voiceovers to go?
Just make a couple extra bucks. Do some commercial works. I've done a couple little business clips that they put on. I don't know where they are. I did a couple crazy voices for characters on a cartoon thing. That's it. And I did like 2 audiobooks. Yeah.
And then now let's talk about what you're working on now.
Yes.
Are you allowed to talk about it? I mean,
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. No. The promo's up. It's on iTunes, Google Play as well.
You're doing a podcast?
It's a podcast.
Series?
Yep.
Okay,
It's a podcast, but it's going to be seasons, episodic, same thing like our show we do now. That's when we did our meeting. We had a family meeting, and all my kids, even my middle child that's not involved in it. And I said, we want to do this podcast thing. I can't do it on my own. You guys have any interest? Yeah, they all fell in love. My one daughter had the notepad out, the yellow book. She's taking notes with the names, stuff like that. And we threw around ideas. We did Knights of the Steel Table. And we actually started that. We put a couple shows up and we deleted it. It was great.
Right, that was another show?
Yeah. We had it up first before Magic and Steele. Yeah. It was Knights of the Steel Table, like King Arthur's Knights. But it was just talking about current events, stuff like that. And it was awesome. Just didn't have the time. We ended up finding our Sunday morning was the one time that everybody could be there. And then we wanted to record at least an hour of the Magic and Steele show, the D&D game. So it took some time, prep, getting ready. Everybody's waking up, and then getting to character. And then by the time it's an hour and a half and you only have like 30 minutes of actual meat that's
when we
in
recorded that show, Dave, at your house, we can put the link too on the
Great
episode
show
that I was on. But I remember when that show was done recording, man, that was it. Like everyone.
See ya.
I got to go to work. I got to go to bed. I got to go to school.
Yes.
Everybody was out, dude.
Totally. And I hate that. I'd love to, in a perfect world, you'd have all this time to hang out and then talk about it. No.
That was when it was exciting, but slightly bummed because I was like,
Yes.
all right, man, I guess everybody's got to do something.
Yeah.
So you talked about time. You keep finding time to do it, but yet you just said that you didn't have time to do both, but yet you have time to do all this other stuff now.
Well, now, because my work schedule is different, so I have a little more free time. So I started talking about this audio drama I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I had the idea years ago. I've always wanted to do this audio drama.
Tell us about the idea.
Well, the idea was I wanted to record. When I first found out about podcasting, I'm thinking I want to do a recorder kind of like you have the Zoom, the H6. I'm thinking I could have a guy in this post-apocalyptic type future kind of thing, wakes up, and I don't know how that happens, where he got that from, but he wakes up and finds a recorder, and then he walks around with it and starts like so you're listening to him going through this.
Oh, I like that.
So yeah, it's like real time. You're like, and he's like, is this thing? And he's tapping it. Is this thing recording, broadcasting? I don't even know. What is going on? And he looks around.
Are you the top? You're the top guy, right? You're
Yeah.
the main voice. Okay.
Yes, correct. So then he goes about doing this thing. So I had the idea, talked to my kids about it, to my 2 oldest ones. My second daughter, Shayna, they both did theater, but she did some screenplay writing, some poems and stuff in school. So she has that creative juice going on. And I even saw some screenplays she wrote for some theater class she was in. So I give it to them. We made this Google document thing we shared, and we started messing around with it because I don't have that. I got this raw idea, and I want to do it, but I can't put the pieces together. So then I ended up a good friend of ours, Adam Christopher. He does the After 6 podcast. And they actually took a break. We became friends, and he promoted our show, and so we've talked, and we did interviews together. And I found out on Facebook he's a scriptwriter. He's a writer also. He does on the side. So I hit him up one day. Dude, I see you're a scriptwriter. I have this idea. I really want to get started with it. Any interest? He jumped like crazy. He's like, absolutely. I love your show. I love what you guys do.
Sure.
So entertaining. Whatever you guys want to do, Steel Empire, I'm in. Okay, cool. So we had a collaboration, got on the phone together, conference calls, and he's written the script. So season 1's already done. Ideas for 10 seasons already interweaved. It's insane. So Ark City is basically this post-apocalyptic thing. It's kind of Noah's Ark. It's based on that, okay?
Sorry.
So it's like
Very
this.
apropos.
Yeah, I mean, it's like this end of the world thing going on, and all the countries make their own Ark cities. Kind of likes to bring in the scientists and trying to save the world.
What's happened in the world that's falling apart?
Should I say?
No,
I
don't
don't
spoil.
know.
No spoilers.
I know. I don't know if
No,
I should
you don't
spoil
spoil it.
it.
No, don't spoil it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
but there's something major going on in the world,
Okay.
and just the governments are collapsed, and all the countries are just trying to stay alive, and they can't. They're losing.
Sure.
So they make these Ark cities. There was a movie about like the actual boats, the Noah's boats or something. I forget what that was called, but they kind of had all these boats. All the countries had their own boat, hidden up in the mountains, and then everybody's running to them. But you have tickets, like only certain people could come.
Sure.
So it was limited. The smart people, the scientists, the whatever engineers. So you're trying to get into Ark City, and it's based on that. And there's these scientists and I play Lawful Good because he actually loses his memory. He goes through this operation procedure. His name is Nathan Alexander, and his wife Karen is the top scientist. And basically, he wakes up, and it starts with him like, what's going on? You know, he's like, he forgets where he's at, and it's this whole dramatic theater of the mind thing. And I'm going to have on there, too, people have to listen with headphones if you want the full experience.
Okay.
Because the sounds of the room, you hear the teapot over there, you hear the record player over here.
Oh, so your production's going to be
it's
timely.
killer.
Timely.
Yeah, it's killer. And, man, it's exciting because the first 5 shows are coming out next month in November. They're halfway done. I did the first 3 are already done. We're just tweaking them. I have some people listening to them, little notes, things I need to fix, things I might not have heard. I've listened to them a million times, so in production.
Yeah.
So I over listen now. It's like I'm like
I can't. That's
right.
That's like
I'm
I don't
like
listen to my
over
show.
editing. I'm
Yeah.
overdoing. I gotta get back. You know. So the first 3 are done that way. So I have 2 more to finish up, and then we put them out. And then it's going to be bi-weekly. And it's like 10 episodes for the first season.
Yeah.
Bam, there it is. It kind of gives you the full in on what's going on in Arc City in this world, and it's an audio drama. It's amazing. It's so fun.
So when
I'm having a blast.
you talked about collaboration, right? So
Yeah.
that's one thing I somewhat struggle with, that even in producing Megan and Liv's show is I'm used to being the one that I think that let me do all the work.
Yeah.
And this was the first time I actually collaborated with a voiceover, Rihanna, who's a co-host with my friend Dana Buckler on How Was This Movie, and I think he produces her show. Ironically, her show is I'm not going to say it's not UBU, and forgive me, Ray, if you're listening, that suddenly I'm forgetting because I know it's similar. That's the irony, right? I got the same person to do that. That I asked her to help me because I knew that on a mom podcast it'd be a little weird if you heard my voice introducing it. But that was interesting. It was a comfort zone thing for me to the moment I asked, and now I know, wow, there's a lot of people, because you said, right, that person who knew what you were doing, that was open to help you.
He jumped right on.
I didn't realize that.
Yes.
Now I'm to a point right now doing this where I can actually throw it, like you'd be on it, where I'd say, hey, Dave, can you help me out with this? Where you would do it without even asking for nothing. It would be, I'd absolutely make the time. I've already done 2 voiceovers for my friend Margot, who does 4 podcasts, Margot Donahue, and she, Not Fade Away is the podcast that she does. And we, again, for those listening and watching, every podcast I'm saying right now is on our website, and we'll put the link
in
at
the show notes.
independent.com on the Are You Listening page, where you can find hyperlinks to all these shows we're talking about. Because it's really about, not only do we like talking about what we do here and our experiences, but I wouldn't be here without listening to other podcasts and being inspired to do things. I mean, that's what my wife had said, that I think, which I was flattered with. She said on her first show that, she was inspired by what I do here, which is really neat. And you don't think that. So let's talk about that, right? So you create things, right, from nothing.
Yeah.
Do you find it hard to look past your own work to see how others see it? Because I don't listen to it. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I'm uncomfortable getting compliments, or I don't think it's good enough, because that keeps me moving forward to keep doing it differently. You don't feel uncomfortable when people compliment your work?
No, and there's a few things popped in my head when you were talking. I don't want to interrupt you, but I will. You putting out the word like collaboration. I was amazed. I actually need some more voices for moving into my last 5 episodes and into the next season, because I'm not doing all the voices. I have female voices, other voices. I can't do them all. So I want to be focused on the main character. And then these other voices that you come into this world, I need other people. So I put a shout out on Facebook, just general, hey.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, a bunch of people reacted and said, yeah, I'm interested. What? I couldn't believe all the feedback.
Really, though?
I couldn't believe it.
See, it's interesting. So
because nobody listens to my show. I'm like, they don't even know who I am.
That's the funny thing. Like, that's how you feel is how I feel. But yet when someone else says it to you, you're like, yeah, of course. I wouldn't hesitate. I can get a text right now and say, hey, can you do a voiceover for me? And I tell them, yeah, I have the recorder tonight. I'm recording my show, and all I'll do is give me the script, and I'll read it out and then get it on Dropbox so you can download it. But I don't know why I don't know why that I'm that way. I don't know if it's because in the past I wasn't encouraged the best way I could, and yet maybe there's a fear that if I accept the fact that I've reached it, I won't try anymore. I'll just settle. Suddenly I'll be like, all right, that's fine. I still haven't. It was a cool task to be able to create Megan's podcast, the UBU podcast. I mean, everything from designing the graphics, which I did, and getting the RSS feed on iTunes, which, by the way, when I started this 3 years ago, it seems so much harder. Like now it's so much easier.
Oh, yeah.
You can go on a website.
Because you went through it.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah,
back
I
then
think-
they didn't have the technology to do all that, but now it's real easy, and you can go and find out a lot of resources online that can talk you through that.
Yeah.
But I wish there was. Do you ever feel so then when you create things? There are times where you just kind of take a step back and pat yourself on the back and fist pump and be like, "Yeah, I'm the shit." When was the last time you did that?
Gosh, I don't think I'm there yet. I think with the audio drama stuff I'm doing right now, sitting in my studio, I crank up my studio monitors and I listen to it. I hear the music and I'm like, yeah, nice. I did that all by myself. I don't know what I'm doing and I'm making it happen. And so that's amazing. But like our regular show, the podcast, the Magic and Steele, I'll hear people say they like it or something, and I'm still not happy with the production. I'm still not happy. I want more.
What's happy then? What does happy look like?
I think, gosh, I don't know if I'll ever get there. It's the kind of certain people are like that. You're never happy, and I think there's always something else. And you'll even, you'll get done your 200 shows or whatever, or I may even get done this show and leave it behind.
You know why I did 200, man? I put a goal on it.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's goal.
Well, one, I didn't want it to die. Well, that's how I am. I didn't want it to die and
that's
just
how
give
you
up,
are.
Right? I didn't want it to die, but also it needed to end. So I had to put an end date on it.
Yeah. But what happens at the end of that? You have this hunger now. You have this.
Well, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to start a book. But
you're done podcasting?
No, maybe it'll be something else.
I know it will.
But I'm just looking. If I was to
guaranteed
say that now,
it will be.
I mean, talk about a 200 episode outline of a book.
Yeah.
Right. All the
it's
legwork's
awesome.
done.
Fantastic.
And it'll just be about. I don't know what it'll be about, but I never wrote a book, so why not write one?
Absolutely.
I mean, we've had people on the show that have written books, and I think I can author a book.
Sure.
But it's that. It's almost like I'm afraid, and I use that word lightly, that if I settle and say this is the best it can be, then I'm never going to strive for anything to become better. But then I never see it, though, Dave. That's the issue, man. I never see it. I have to be reminded and then actually take it. But it happens rarely where I can seriously pat myself on the back and say, you did a good job, Nick.
Yeah.
Looking at yourself objectively, right? Everything's subjective, right? You're constantly in your own head, the voices in your head, and you can't get away from them.
Yeah.
And then suddenly when you're hearing it from somebody else, it sounds like a voice in your head.
Yeah, it's like they step back. They take a step back, and you're hearing it from somebody else. I had the same thing with our show. Like, I was kind of even thinking, like, man, it's sometimes we're in season 2 and there's some different characters, and I get like, it's like it becomes a tedious thing almost. I'm thinking, I don't know how long is this going to go on, but then you'll get. I just got a bunch of stuff on Twitter, and some guy from Germany. I just found your show. I love your show.
Awesome.
Kind of broken English, I'm sorry. I apologize for my broken. I just downloaded everything from the back, and I'm pushing through, and just we got in this conversation and back and forth, and then I left it, and then he had said, and I'm also gonna. He did a subscribe. Rate and review thing right away. This huge long thing, the biggest I've ever had.
Used
it was
all
like a
the
little book.
characters,
Yeah, it was crazy. I was like, wow, amazing. This brand new fan.
Sure.
And then he also said, and I'm also going to promote you and talk about how you're very engaging with the audience just on Twitter, on social media.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. This is what I've been longing for, people to actually reach out. More than the show. It's like, you want people to email you and talk to you and say, feedback, let's get into it.
Well, no, that is the one thing, when you put art out there. I mean, from the time I was sculpting in college and I met my in-laws 20 years ago this December, the first time they came to my campus to see, I don't know if it was a parents' weekend, but our senior show was, and my piece was in the lobby of it was actually, I mean, you know what, man? Let's take a stop for a second. My piece I made was actually in the lobby of the school.
You have a picture of it?
I'll show you.
You going to put it in the show notes?
No, I got to find it. I think I put it on Facebook before. It's me standing next to it with my corduroy pants and my Vans and my long hair. And it was I think I was so nervous to meet my in-laws, but knowing that they were seeing my art too, I think it was a 6-foot-long woman made out of particle board posing. She was sunbathing on the beach. One leg was bent. She was on her elbows. She was up. She had earrings and things like that. The stereotypical dolphin tattoo of the 90s on her hip. Yeah. And my in-laws actually said to Meg, as long as that sculpture doesn't look like you, we're good. Like I used Megan as a model.
Yeah.
But it was, you do that and you don't well, the funny thing is, like we just said, you don't realize how cool that is until you step away from it years and years and years and realize, wow, that was actually really cool. Yes. They actually recognized that I can actually do something like that, and I decided that it's okay and say that it was actually pretty good. Yeah. Because I don't know, it's just, you want to be humble on this side, right? You don't want people to say that's an arrogant asshole artist.
Sure.
But yet, you start you're afraid, you start training yourself that if you lose sight of that, you are going to be that asshole. Like we were just talking before, right? We're talking about two people that put their content online, right? One that I was quick to judge, and you said, no, it's really not as arrogant as you might think it is. And then one guy that's full-blown arrogance.
In my point of view, right? You might love him. Yeah.
No, but we talked about the context of the communication I had with this person. But you want to be remembered for what you create. Correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Yeah.
Because you do this thing with your kids, right? That's something you'll never, just like these 200 episodes, no one can ever take them away from me, and no one can ever take away the time that you spend with your kids on Sunday mornings. But you don't want to lose yourself in it, right? And become that guy that like, why would I want to listen to that guy? He's a prick, or that guy is too judgmental, or all that shit. But sometimes you have to kind of go there to be like, I mean, shit, don't we deserve that? Don't you deserve as being a creative person to be like, hey, man, I am the shit. That's actually some good shit. Yeah. Anytime I do that, no one ever sees me do it.
Right. Sure.
Like I do that.
And that's good.
You know, I do that. It's weird. I call it the proverbial Tiger Woods fist pump, where you're just like, you know, you just, but I'm so afraid that I'll lose sight of that. And because there are people, I know there's creative people that we follow on Facebook, on some of the communities we have. I can just tell how they communicate, that they might be content creators, but they're assholes.
Yes.
And I'd rather be
completely.
So you want to be remembered by your creativity, but you want to be judged by, like you said, the connections you make, and that the guy from Germany, that means more than just.
You want to be a good human.
Than just that.
I mean, even in anything you do. So the podcast is just another extension of you.
But creating something is a legacy to leave something behind. Because that's something that's tangible.
Yeah.
The feeling that people have around you isn't. Does that make sense? Right? So you try to make impacts with people. You and I now have an outlet that we use.
And there's people that won't like it, no matter what.
Well, that's fine, though.
Yeah, totally. And you have to be okay with that as a creator. Yeah. Sometimes, though, I'm not. Sometimes I catch myself being like, somebody will say they don't like it or it's not for them.
Okay,
I'm like,
no one's ever said that to me. No one's ever said that to me. Have you, in all my social media, how people communicate with me, has anyone ever said, like, actually given you negative feedback? Like these trolls? What? Well,
I never, it was on Twitter, I think it was. I put my show out there in the beginning. Hey, check it out. Please let me know. Give me feedback, what you think, because I wanted to kind of tweak it to make it, because I was doing it on my own, not knowing how to make the show. I don't know what the best way to do it. And some people said, well, they didn't like, I don't know, the way we went, or there was too much. Some people want more of just the voices. Hello, and we're back and forth fighting and improv, and no roles. They don't want to hear us talk about what we do, how we're doing the roles, and roll for advantage, roll for to see if you're going to strike or whatever. They don't want to hear any of that. They just want to hear the audio show, maybe some music in the background. Other people don't want as much as that. They want to hear the show. They want to hear the roles and more of the gameplay. And there's shows that do both of that. Some shows are dedicated to either side of that.
Do you welcome people that tell you then how to be creative? I always hated that.
No, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
Please give me critiques, especially even now with the Arc City thing. I have a few close people that I've said, hey, are you interested in being a QC? And like, QC, what's QC? Quality control. You never heard of that? So QC, and listen to my stuff I have pretty much done, but I know I still have to tweak them. This is my first few episodes, and tell me what you think. First time listen, what do you hear that you miss? What do you hear that, as a podcast listener, that you wished I would have had in there? I want to know. So then I can kind of, and it doesn't mean I'm going to fix it or change it, but I like to know what's your view of it. And then from there, I realized too, the screenplay writer, Adam, he told me, you ought to check out all these other audio dramas. I haven't even listened to any.
So why did he recommend the other audio
dramas? He's just because now I'm becoming one. Maybe you'll get some ideas.
See, I like that though.
But I started doing it.
I like
but then
that.
I
It's
caught
like,
myself.
hey, try that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I started doing it. I catch myself trying to I guess I got to do it like that, or I have to do it these guys. And then I stop myself and go, no, you know what? I'm doing this from the ground up.
So now you're talking about
I'm just going to be me,
right?
original. This is what I do. Same thing with Magic and Steele. We didn't take anything from anybody else. This is what I felt that I wanted. I want to make the show that's enjoyable for me to listen to, and I can't let that go. So I just have to stay focused on that and just be proud of what I made for us. And then, hey, cool, you got a bunch of people that love it. Tons of people go and follow it and listen to it all around the world. You're like, what? It's amazing. So that's the joy of it.
And usually when you put stuff out there, that's when people, like I said, if you had trolls, right, that's when people suddenly have an opinion about it. It's so crazy, right? You want people to have an opinion about it, but you'd prefer to have a positive opinion
Absolutely.
about it versus a negative opinion about it.
Yeah.
But you risk it every time you put it out there because there's always going to be haters out there.
Yeah.
I don't know if... is there like an end game? I mean, do you have like...
with that?
No, anything.
D&D?
Think about like I graduated with an art degree thinking that I would deliver pizzas and exhibit my art over the weekends.
Yes.
Never thought I'd be able to like understand social media and
Yes.
and have a corporate career where
Yes.
I understand marketing and I know questions to ask.
Right.
And it becomes second nature, some of the things that I know how to do. But I
Yeah.
guess with anything, the more you do it, the more comfortable you
Yes.
get doing it. But I took a huge hiatus when I had my kids or had my life because what I did was sculpting and I needed a lot of space. I mean, at one point, I think after I graduated college, my sister's room, my sister had moved up with her fiance up to Maine.
Yeah.
I turned her room into my studio.
Wow.
That was the shit, though. I made a lot of pieces in that room. I used a jigsaw, cut up a lot of particle board, and what I did, I made animals and people. That was done on the back porch of my
And what
apartment.
did you end up doing with that stuff?
Well, and I've talked about this on the show before, when I started working for a door-to-door sales company
Yeah.
after that summer I graduated,
Yeah.
I didn't have a place to put any of my artwork, so I
Right.
put it in my friend's basement. And his father, eventually after a year, because I had traveled for 2 years,
Yes.
didn't want it there anymore, so it was all thrown away.
Oh, no.
So the only thing I have, the cool thing about now that what you create online is it's permanent.
Yeah.
Like now it just goes out there, and there's no risk of someone accidentally deleting it unless you actually do it for you or your website crashes.
But you didn't get to have your gallery show in Philly.
No, that would have been cool. No, I
Nice.
still, it's very nostalgic because I'll take those photographs and look. I think it was evaluated by the local art association. So that senior show that we had, so I won like a second place
Nice.
on pieces that I did, and I look back, that was pretty awesome. You know, it was something that, but you do it. Again, it's so funny every time during the show as I'm talking about this, like you want to revel in it, but I look at it and go, no, it was good, but it wasn't that good. But yet I won an award. Yet everyone realized that it was better than everybody else.
Yeah.
And I won an award.
Yeah.
I'm just so afraid to lose that humility to be. But you gotta. I think it's fun. What I enjoy about you is how excited you get about what you do. I get
It's a
just
balance.
as excited.
Yes, totally. And
Yeah.
the real people, you know, like I love you as a human being, really. And we
love you too,
we
Dave.
haven't and we call each other friend, but we haven't hung out personally a lot.
No.
You know, we've a couple times and we've talked a couple times. But just there's certain people you come in contact in your life that you know that's a real person. You know, I know you're a family man. I respect that. And
You
so
see is what you get, dude. Like,
yeah,
there's not
I mean,
much behind it.
but you know that with some people, and then you know some people that we've met personally as well too. The same people, man, they're kind of fake. They're like, oh, they're putting on this show, but you can tell.
But why? Why do they do that?
I don't know, but again, that's
Do they want to tailor them?
that's where I'm not a psychiatrist, a psychologist. You know, I don't know and I don't care. Let them be them. It's just not somebody I want in my life. But doing the things we do and why we strive for it, it's just that's what makes us.
Do you think they do that to protect themselves then? To almost tailor
Yeah,
the way people are going to
sure.
react to what they do?
Sure, I think
Dictating perception?
they're like the car salesman or what, you know, whatever. That's what drives them though. I can't really judge them for that.
Yeah,
I
right.
don't like it, but they don't have the same heart that I have, that same creative thing. They're doing it for more like I'd love to make money doing what we're doing. That's the Steel Empire. I'd love
You
to
will,
be able
man.
to.
The
I'd love
content
to.
you create,
I
you
think so.
definitely
I
will.
think so. I think, especially with the drama thing, there's a way of doing that, and I think it's possible. I'd love to because I love doing this.
You can do like extra chapters.
yeah,
of
whatever.
prequels. You could do like
Totally,
backstories, and people
totally,
could pay a little bit of money. For that.
Totally.
Yeah.
It gets, and I'd love to do that, and I'm fired up for that. But that's not my end game. That's not my. I mean, it is if I'm thinking about something like that, but it's not my focus. The focus is awesome content that I would enjoy listening to, and hope that other people would like it as well.
And you get lucky. Like, no way did I ever. We talked about this at the MapCon, is the fact that you see all these people that can make a living doing. You want to.
Yeah.
How about this? You want to make a living doing with something that you love, and I thought as an artist I'd be able to do that. When I realized that's not. It's you get lucky. I mean, you get like maybe a graphic design job,
Sure.
working on like what I talked about, Photoshop, doing that kind of stuff. But you don't. It's not as clear cut. It's not like I got a job as an accountant. And I do accounting work and I do this and that. And I'm in public and private accounting. As an artist, you don't know where you're going to go. You get either discovered, you don't get discovered, right? You either blow up or you don't. You either blow up on social media or you don't.
Yeah.
Either you try something that was kind of even kilter as you're creating something, and then suddenly years go by, like these guys that are revived, like a John Travolta, or these people that had a career and then suddenly would bounce back again.
Yeah.
That's what's interesting. I look at the show and now that my wife's show, that 200 years from now, or
Episodes. I got
200
it.
episodes.
We all
shit.
understand.
So that's like 6 years from now. That I'm curious to see how the show
Is it 6 years?
Well, the
You
content
got
I
it
create,
mapped
even
out.
the videos, the content that we create, how that will be viewed then, how my kids will view that, how I will view that as I evolve and I change. I'd rather. I can really look at my work objectively when time goes by. versus trying to do it now.
Yeah.
It's so hard to look at it now.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine like people like Picasso or people like musicians that once they did an album, they sat back and go, you know what? That's the well, then you said there's some people that are like, that is the greatest shit
but
that's
they're,
ever
I don't,
been
but
created.
I know.
ever.
I don't think they're the ones that are the magic makers like that. The real creators like that do that, they always are striving for more. They want to do something different, something more. They're not the ones that are happy with it. You know, that's the shit. No, they're not doing that. The Picasso. I can imagine him doing it and be like, "Nah, we could have done this. Oh well," and move on, and it's a masterpiece. And then my next thing is going to be this because I'm always striving. Same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing, and this another outlet for you. That thing with your wife and the show. It's another thing for you. That creativity, whether you like it or not, it happens. Same thing for me. I'm striving to do other things. I hope to keep the other one going. I just love doing it with my kids, being involved, just getting together and playing. You know.
So you said you had 5 shows in the can for Arc City,
Yes.
right? The show's doing well. Quest for Magic and Steel.
Yeah,
Would you ever stop that
Oh, well.
and just focus on Arc, or you have to balance them out? Because you think about outlets, right? Creative outlets. I mean, you get to a point, man, you can't manage them all.
Yes. I don't know. I'd like to get to the point where I don't manage it. I don't edit it. If I get to the point where we're actually making some money on it, then
hire
we
somebody.
would definitely still do it. Just getting together and doing it and recording is cool, and then give it to somebody else to deal with. That absolutely will still do it.
That is a comfort zone I don't think I'd ever be able to do.
I would, especially with that show. I mean,
But that is labor intensive.
totally. But I think, and it would be hard. I'm controlling with it like the way I am now.
Like you said, you have
Totally.
control
But
of
I
what you
think because the show is established already, I kind of have and I'd let them hear it. It'd be a professional. This is how we do our show. So this is what, and I'd try it out, and see. And if they got it, then I'd be good with it.
And I'm so used to being the one that does creative work for other people, whether it be videography, voiceovers, or even the podcast now. I that would be such a different, because it wouldn't. Then remember you said before about you having a vision, like I'm thinking up here.
Yeah.
You want as a creative artist, touching a palette with a paintbrush and oil paints, or grabbing a saw and screwing wood together to make an additive sculpture, you are in full control of realizing your vision. But when you start passing it off to somebody, even though you're collaborating with them, there's a level of compromise because you have to be like, hey, maybe I don't. I can understand someone like these film franchises, right? They go through and do these things. You know, the new Justice League movie?
Yeah.
So I was watching Dawn of Justice with Nate today.
Yeah.
So funny. I could critique that movie like crazy. That's the Batman, Superman movie.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Zack Snyder had to get away from production because he had, I think his daughter committed suicide. Something happened.
I didn't know that.
Don't quote me on that. That something happened. There was a death. His daughter died.
Yeah.
So he stepped out. But Joss Whedon, who built his entire claim to fame, his modern claim to fame on building the Avengers series, because he directed all those movies, now took over. Now, if you stop and think about it, right? Zack Snyder's got this style, and now suddenly you have Joss Whedon, who everyone knows the Marvel movies pop.
Yeah.
Right? Totally pop character, and I think that first Batman, Superman movie didn't really kind of pop because you didn't quite connect with the characters. But now you have a guy who's an expert at that, who's now going to have directing. He's going to be the director, and then Zack Snyder is going to be the writing credit. That now that movie's going to change. I almost would love to pull Zack Snyder aside and be like, Zack, how do you think about that? Like, does that sit well with you? Is that just something that happens in the monetary creative world of film, that people will pull a job away from you? I mean, look at Back to the Future, right? Didn't I can't remember the character name that did. There was a guy that played, and anyone who's Googling this right now that knows this guy, the actor, he was in Mask, played.
The redhead guy.
Yeah, okay, great.
Right?
He played Marty
What's his
McFly virtually like 90% of Back to the Future. They shot it. And,
What?
And then when they watched
Is that
But when they
right?
watched the dailies, he didn't have that comic pop.
Yes.
So they negotiated with the producers of Family Ties
With
to
Michael.
bring Michael J. Fox.
Yes.
So can you imagine that? You shoot the whole movie, dude.
That would have been totally different
Think
with
the
him.
whole movie on location. That's like asking, you know what? You've done 100 podcasts. We don't like the way they sound. Can someone else go back and do them for you?
Yeah.
I mean, think about
Wow.
that. So there's a level of ego in the stuff that we
Totally.
do too, right?
Totally.
Hence that whole thing about arrogance. If you let that get away from you and you're feeling a self-importance like that salesman, I think people lose sight of it. And if
I think so.
if you think it's more important than somebody else's, then what's the point?
And they die. And those shows, not the person, but the shows die. They can only go so far.
But there's such a necessity to promote the hell out of it because you're your own production studio. You have to let people know. Use social media, put pictures out. I think
I never had Facebook or the Twitter. I never did that.
or the Twitter.
Or the Twitter. What do you call it? The
Tweets and
internet,
twats, man.
The internet,
Interwebs.
I never did that stuff. I've done PC repair. I know all about the internet, but I've never had social media stuff. I don't care about it. I don't want it. Then we had the show. I realized, again, studying about podcasts, You have to do it. You have to get out there and become part of the fan base. You got to get out there and interact with them. So.
But then you find who your audience is, and then you can deal directly
Yeah,
with them.
totally. Yep.
So as an artist, you create stuff. It comes from up here.
Yeah.
You execute it in the best way you can. You roll the dice, and hopefully people like it.
Yeah.
Some people get it. Some people don't. Mm-hmm. Right? The people that do get it, the one thing you want to do is not just connect with them through your art, but connect with them personally.
Yeah, totally.
Which actually lasts a lot longer, which is why I love doing this show.
Yeah.
And having someone like you here, that it's that what we're doing is bigger than just simply your show and my show.
Yeah.
In the long term, what would ever happen that would get you to stop doing it all?
Doing it all?
I mean, think about it. What could, do you ever think about that? Like, how could it suddenly all end?
No, I don't know. And I don't think I could ever answer that question. How could it all end? I get cancer and die, or I get cancer and I have to go run around, act like a madman, and do things I never, my bucket list. I don't know. So I would stop and do other things if I knew I was terminally ill and I only had this 2 years to live. Something like that maybe, but I think, and just in life, like I had my own martial arts studio.
Yeah, you did,
2001 to 2004.
Cool.
Closed the school, killed me. You know what I mean? I had changed up. I had to do different things. I DJ'd forever, for years. I was a wedding DJ, MC on the mic. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. and Mrs. I love being on the mic. I'm a ham, you know. But sang in some bands and all that kind of stuff, But so I didn't have that outlet. So I stopped DJing. I was driving a truck, or I worked for the state police, and all that kind of stuff. And then I didn't have that creative outlet anymore when I stopped DJing. So I found out just on a whim or God's providence, who knows, but whatever it was, that I found out about voiceovers. I got this Groupon or Living Social thing. Hey, we got this. It was a Gravy for the Brain, I think it is. Give them a plug. Gravy for the Brain. They were awesome. They had this little course. It was cheap. I paid something for it. Take this voiceover course. It was this professional UK voiceover guy, and he kind of taught you the ins and outs of it.
Yeah.
I got into that for like a year. I started doing all their training and made my own little studio, my little small one.
Sure.
I learned how to do that, got the mic for that. That's before podcasting. And because that was my creative outlet. And then just, by chance, boom, or like I said, by destiny or fate or, whatever you want to call it, the cosmic powers, I found podcasting. Bam. Oh, hey. And it just happened. And so that's where we're at now. We did the D&D thing. It's always about my family, so it became that thing with them. Hey, we're doing the podcasting thing now. We have the Steel Empire. Guess what? It's a podcasting network that we made before we even had any network. Now we can do some more.
Yeah.
And it's already pre-made. And I knew that learning from experts by reading about it and whatever I do. Like I said, I just, you want to be the best at it, just the way you are. You want to do your best you can. So I don't know what happens next. How do what will make you stop? Nothing. I continue to evolve.
The answer is you have to you choose to.
Yeah, I mean, you continue to evolve in life. It's whatever's going on.
But you would have to really, if you really, you made everything happen based on the time. Like, think about all the time constraints you have. Like, pinning the kids in on those Sunday mornings to do it.
Oh, heck
but yet
yeah.
you still make time. I still made time to produce this show. Still made time to produce my wife's show.
Yeah.
We'll probably produce other shows.
Yeah.
But I always seem to make time. But the trick is just constantly a juggle, because you're balancing it with family and time with your friends. And your kids. But the one thing about now is I'm able to bring them into the fold. That's what I guess that's a cool thing, dude. We both discovered. How do you bring people in the fold? And the fact that you asked your kids to help you with the second piece, where they can be like, you know what, Dad? I think the first one's pretty much a lot. Why do I want to jump in and help you to do this? So being creative is not I don't think it's a curse. Like, sometimes I wish, man, I was just a lazy asshole. So I could just be like, man, my life would be so much easier.
Yeah.
But instead, you constantly have that drive to be like, how can I do more? How can I make it better? You said before about, you look up stuff. There's so many resources out there, but nothing's handed to you. It's not like anyone's sitting with you and saying, do this, do that, do this. Every time someone gives you feedback, or anytime someone allows you to, or takes the opportunity to provide you some creative input to help you do what you do, it's a blessing, because no one can give a shit. Like, they could be like, you know what, screw you, you're on your own. But you're also seeking it all the time, and that's the only way pretty much to not kill it. I think we covered creativity, man.
I think
the and what I want to make sure is there's a lot of whys in that, and I think I'm clear on what my whys are, because that's only going to keep me going. Will those whys change? Maybe. I'm just going to keep asking all the time, because I don't want anyone to tell me to stop, because that would suck. All right, guys. Hey, so peppered throughout this show, I talked about a podcast that I'm producing for my wife. And we have this segment, let's marry this up, even though we kind of gave you some spoilers in the beginning. There's this podcast. Every show we promote a podcast called Are You Listening? See, on the video they can see it. I think you should. Podcast where myself and Dave did not get where we are without pulling inspiration from other podcasts. So I started this segment a long time ago, probably in the early 20 episodes, to basically give an opportunity to promote podcasts. I think, Dave, you made that. I mentioned that before. You're on our website, the Are You Listening segment of the dependentindependent.com website. And this is easy. This is an easy one. I want you to go out, brand new on iTunes, and listen to the UBU podcast with Meg and Liv. It is a mom podcast that my wife and her friend Liv, who are both on episode 66, talking about the meaning of food, asked me to help them produce. We produced it in the studio. It is now live online. I want you to go on there and subscribe. Cool thing about that show is the mom podcast, pretty big community, right? They basically talk through everything moms deal with. And it's not just about raising kids. It's how they deal with just being moms, the pressures of being moms, and wives at the same time. And they go all in to share their experiences and really help you all find the good in all those experiences to move forward. Ironically, similar to the theme of the show.
Yes.
And it's a great opportunity to connect with people that are experiencing the same things that you may be going through as a mom. You can find the link in the show notes. We'll put the hyperlink for the iTunes. We're going to put in the hyperlink for the iTunes so you guys can go on, listen to it on your podcast app on your iPhone, but you can pretty much listen to it anywhere that pulls that feed. Again, the Are You Listening? She's washing dishes upstairs. I think you should. Podcast is for episode 68 is the UBU podcast with Meg and Liv. One thing I want to throw out there is you never want to forget where you came from. And just like you, that German gentleman that reached out to you.
Yeah.
There's a gentleman that I don't know fully personally, but he's been supporting my show since I first put it out there. I know he listens to it all the time, and he listens to it on Stitcher, which I don't know if anybody listens to my show on Stitcher.
Right.
But this gentleman named Chris Bart, today's his birthday. I don't know how old he is or how young he is right now, but I want to wish him a happy birthday because I know he's probably listening to the show. Chris Bart, he's local in my town, but he's been listening to the show all the way from the beginning. We have a live show on November 4th. If you're a follower, and we'd like you to be a follower of our Facebook page at the Dependent Independent Podcast page, you can go on Facebook. An event we have on November 4th. My friend and I, Jess Brannis, she hosts the Drinks with Jess podcast. Go ahead and check her show out. She's on the Are You Listening page as well. But she and I are going to be doing a live show at the Vinyl Brewing Company, which brand new, grand opening. I think they're doing their ribbon cutting tomorrow or today. But I've been there like 4 times already. I mean,
wow.
And it's only been.
I drove by it
It's
today.
bad. I know. Their beer is so good. And I think eventually I might be the podcaster of breweries because there's another brewery called Death of the Fox down in Clarksboro.
Do some special shows.
That I'm going to do there.
Do some special shows.
Dewey's friends with Chuck, the owner, and we're going to do a show when they close out.
Why
figure
not?
out what that show is
Why
going to
not?
be online or on.
And I'll be there November 4th.
Oh yes, you can help me.
hi.
You can help me with the PA. All I need is a speaker, dude, and a way to get this thing going out because that's the one downfall I had in episode 50. Come and listen to us. It's going to be a different vibe. If you've ever been to a live podcast recording, I think we're going to lay down on the theatrics a little bit, but some of the themes we're going to talk about is really the permanence of tattoos and what that means. I have no tattoos. Jess has a few. If you're watching this video on YouTube, you see my boy right. How old is that tattoo?
It's a dragon.
How old is that tattoo?
I don't know. Not that old.
Dave's got a dragon tattoo. That's
bunch
pretty
of 'em.
badass, man. So we're partnering with the Mordor Tattoo Parlor, which is up the street.
Mordor.
I know that's it, but that's her last name, which is pretty sweet.
Yes.
I guess the determination is, and what's going to happen in that show is I may walk out and deciding to get a tattoo. So that's pretty much what Jess's mission is. I don't know what it's going to be, but I think that might be a cool way to remember that event. But come down to Vinyl, November 4th. Meet and greet starts at 6:30. The show recording is from 7 to 9. We're going to have a lot of fun in between. I believe there's a big party there, too, so... there are going to be a lot of people there that don't expect us to be there, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And remember,
don't end the show before you go. I have to say something about your wife's show as well.
Okay, go ahead.
What is it?
UBU podcast.
UBU podcast. It's not just for moms, so anyone can listen to it because you let me listen to a little clip of it.
Did you like it?
It pulls the curtain down on it because you said it even allowed them to speak more honestly than you've ever heard them speak.
Oh no.
So, but just want to make sure everybody knows it's for everyone to hear.
All right,
because
everyone.
I think even men,
Is that bad?
fathers.
Is that bad that I said that?
Not at all. Not
Look
at
what
all.
I did, man. Look what I did. I targeted too much of a...
Yeah, but when you just promoted it, you hey, moms, it's for moms, which is great. But guys will enjoy it too. Fathers, husbands, they could learn.
And that show will evolve too. Well, hey, not for nothing, man. My friend Jess Brannis is a proud gay woman who's written books on how to date women. Not going to lie, dude. Her first book... Seeking Her, Knowing You, awesome book. Helped me out with me being. I mean, she talks about what women want,
Cool.
And it's amazing. You can try different things with your partner and your wife, and it's not crazy freaky deaky stuff, but it's
Where's
about
the show
really,
going?
Is that really thinking? It's about real. No, it's actually, it was crazy. I'm reading this book, because I wanted to support Jess and really get to know a little bit more about her when we had her on our first show.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot. It's actually pretty
Awesome.
sweet. So you're right, man. Don't limit anyone, just moms, to listen to that show. Anyone can check it out, and you can pull from something just like this show. This is episode 68 of the Dependent Independent podcast. Please follow all the show notes to find all the hyperlinks to virtually everything we talked about. I guaranteed I missed one. You can check out our YouTube page where this video will post. I used to do mini-sodes all the time and put them on YouTube, but to be honest with you, I'd rather have friends on here. So Dave and I will be on that video, and that'll post a day or two, or I'll buy the time about a day or two after this show posts, but most likely it'll post at the same time because that's how fast I am at producing stuff, because I'm the shit and I know what I'm doing. See the compliment?
See that?
But thanks for listening, Dave. Thanks for coming. Hey, Dave, do you want to promote anything real quick they follow you on social media?
I don't know.
You don't have to, man. That's okay.
Yeah, you could find me if you go to our website, steeleempire.com. Everything's on there. STEELE. Don't forget the last E for entertainment.
Cool.
Steele Empire.
Thanks for joining me, Dave. Thanks for listening to episode 68, and we are out.